The wind howled through the Hindu Kush mountains like a wounded animal, carrying with it the scent of snow and danger. Chief Petty Officer Maya Reeves lay motionless on the rocky ridgeline, her body perfectly still despite the freezing temperatures that had long since numbed her fingers. Through the scope of her Mk-13 sniper rifle, she watched the compound below with the patience of a predator. 800 meters. Perfect range. Overwatch, this is Alpha 1. We're moving to phase line Bravo. How's our picture? Commander Jack Morrison's voice crackled through her earpiece, calm and professional as always. Maya scanned the compound one more time, her trained eyes searching for any anomaly, any sign that this high-value target mission was anything other than what intelligence had promised. Something felt wrong. The compound was too quiet. No guards visible on the walls. No movement in the windows. After 6 years as a SEAL and 3 deployments, Maya had learned to trust her instincts. Overwatch to Alpha 1, she responded, keeping her voice low. Picture looks clean, but something's off. Recommend cautious approach. Copy that, we're Oscar Mike. Maya watched through her scope as Morrison and his 5-man SEAL team moved down the mountain path toward the compound. They moved like ghosts, their tactical discipline perfect. These were her brothers, her teammates, the men who had initially doubted her, then tested her, and finally accepted her as one of their own when she'd proven herself again and again. Being one of the first women to complete SEAL training meant every day was a test, every mission a chance to prove she belonged. The team reached the outer wall. Morrison signaled. They breached the gate. That's when hell erupted. Ambush, contact front. Morrison's voice exploded through the radio, no longer calm but urgent and sharp. Muzzle flashes erupted from every window of the compound. Dozens of them. This wasn't a high-value target safe house. This was a trap, a kill box designed specifically for them. The intelligence had been compromised or worse, fabricated. Maya's training took over instantly. She identified targets through her scope, prioritized threats. A fighter with an RPG in the second-story window, she squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked against her shoulder. The fighter dropped. Another target manning a machine gun. Another shot, another kill. Taking heavy fire, Morrison shouted. We've got wounded, Peterson's hit. I've got you covered, Maya responded, working the bolt action smoothly, acquiring targets with mechanical precision. She was in the zone now, that place where time seemed to slow and every shot felt inevitable. 4th target down. 5th. 6th. Contact left, they're flanking. Another SEAL screamed. Maya swung her rifle left, spotting a squad of enemy fighters rushing from a nearby building. They were trying to cut off the team's escape route. She fired rapidly, controlled pairs, dropping 2, then 3, but there were too many. Alpha 1, you need to extract now, Maya called out, continuing to fire. They've got reinforcements coming from the east. Working on it, Morrison's voice was strained. She could hear the intense firefight through the radio, the chatter of automatic weapons, the shouting of her teammates. Then Maya saw it, a fighter on a rooftop, shouldering an RPG, aiming not at the SEALs below but up at the ridgeline, aiming at her position. RPG, she started to shout, but the words died as the rocket streaked through the darkness. The world became fire and thunder. The RPG struck the cliff face 30 meters above Maya's position. The explosion was deafening, but worse was what came after. The entire rock face, already unstable from years of erosion and harsh weather, began to collapse. Maya heard the rumble, felt the vibration, and knew with terrible certainty what was about to happen. She tried to move, to scramble away from her hide, but there was no time. Tons of rock and stone cascaded down the mountain like an avalanche. Boulders the size of cars bounced and tumbled. Smaller rocks rained down in a deadly shower. Maya managed to curl into a defensive position, protecting her rifle and her head before the avalanche consumed her. The impact drove the air from her lungs. She felt her ribs crack, heard them snap like dry kindling. Her shoulder wrenched violently, dislocating with a pop she felt more than heard. Something sharp sliced through her thigh. Then the weight, crushing, suffocating weight, pressed down on every part of her body. Darkness took her. Below, Morrison stared up in horror at the massive dust cloud rising from the ridgeline. "Reeves, Maya, respond." He pressed his radio, voice desperate. "Overwatch, come in, Maya." "Static. Chief Reeves, if you can hear me, respond." Nothing but the hiss of dead air. Another SEAL, covered in dust and blood, grabbed Morrison's arm. "Sir, we've got to move. They're surrounding us." Morrison stared up at where Maya's position had been, now buried under hundreds of tons of rock. His night vision showed only devastation, a fresh scar on the mountain where the ridgeline had collapsed. No one could survive that. No one. Enemy fire intensified, bullets cracking past their heads. "Sir," the SEAL shouted again, pulling harder. "We have to go now. Peterson and Davis are hit bad." Morrison made the calculation every commander dreads. 7 men alive below. 1 buried under an avalanche, certainly dead. The mission was blown. They were outnumbered. 2 wounded who needed immediate medical attention. His duty was clear, even if his heart rebelled against it. "Fall back to the extraction point," Morrison ordered, his voice hollow. "Move, move." The SEALs fought their way out of the kill zone, carrying their wounded, laying down, suppressing fire. Morrison took one last look at the rubble pile as they ran. The extraction helicopter roared in, rotors beating the air. The SEALs loaded the wounded aboard, then piled in themselves. As the bird lifted off, Morrison stared out at the mountain, at the fresh rockslide illuminated by the moon. He keyed his radio to base frequency, his hands shaking. "Command, this is Alpha 1. Mission compromised. We're coming home with 2 wounded." He paused, the next words catching in his throat like broken glass. "1 KIA, Chief Petty Officer Maya Reeves is. She's dead. Reeves is gone." The helicopter banked away, its running lights disappearing into the darkness, leaving behind only silence and stone. And somewhere beneath tons of rock, in a tiny pocket of air, Maya Reeves's eyes slowly began to open. Pain. That was the first thing Maya felt as consciousness clawed its way back, white-hot, searing pain that radiated from every nerve ending in her body. She tried to gasp for air but couldn't expand her chest. Panic flared. Buried alive. The thought sent adrenaline surging through her system. Her eyes opened to absolute darkness. The weight on her chest was crushing, making each breath a battle. She could move her right arm slightly, just enough. Her left arm was pinned, screaming in agony, dislocated shoulder. She recognized the sensation from training injuries, but that was the least of her problems right now. Maya forced herself to think through the panic, assess, adapt, overcome. The SEAL mantra that had carried her through Hell Week, through selection, through every impossible challenge they'd thrown at her to prove she didn't belong. She could wiggle her fingers. Good, no spinal damage. Her legs responded to mental commands, though the left one sent lightning bolts of pain when she moved it. Something warm and wet soaked her thigh. Blood, a lot of it. Slowly, agonizingly, Maya began to dig. Her right hand clawed at rocks and dirt above her face, pulling debris toward her body, creating inches of space. Each movement made her ribs grind together, definitely broken, at least 3 of them, maybe more. Every breath felt like knives stabbing into her lungs. Time became meaningless in the darkness. Dig, breathe, dig, ignore the pain, dig. She had no idea if she was digging toward the surface or deeper into her tomb, but staying still meant death, so she dug. Her fingers broke through to cold air. Maya wanted to cry with relief, but she channeled that energy into digging faster. Her right arm thrust through the hole, then her head. She sucked in great lungfuls of freezing mountain air, each breath agony and ecstasy combined. Stars blazed overhead. She'd been unconscious for hours. The firefight was long over. Extracting herself took another 20 minutes of excruciating effort. When she finally pulled her legs free and collapsed on the rubble pile, she lay there shaking, her body screaming at her to just rest, to sleep. But sleep meant hypothermia. Sleep meant death. Maya forced herself to sit up, nearly blacking out from the pain. She needed to assess her injuries properly. Her headlamp was gone, but the moon provided enough light. Her left shoulder hung at an unnatural angle, definitely dislocated. She'd have to relocate it herself. Her left thigh had a deep laceration, still bleeding sluggishly. 3, maybe 4 broken ribs on her right side. Her head pounded with what was certainly a concussion. Cuts and bruises everywhere. But she was alive. Her rifle lay a few feet away, partially buried. Maya crawled to it, pulled it free, checked it over. Somehow, miraculously, it had survived intact. The scope had a crack across one lens, but it was still functional. She had 1 full magazine left, 20 rounds. Her sidearm was gone, lost in the avalanche. Her radio was smashed to pieces, useless plastic and circuits. Maya inventoried her remaining gear. 3 protein bars in her cargo pocket, somehow intact. 1 canteen half full. A small first aid kit. Her combat knife. A lighter. That was it. No way to call for help. No way to signal friendly forces. She was alone, injured deep in enemy territory, and presumed dead by her own team. "Okay, Reeves," she whispered to herself, her voice hoarse. "Time to prove them wrong again." First, the shoulder. Maya braced herself against a boulder, gritted her teeth, and slammed her arm upward and back in one sharp motion. The shoulder popped back into socket with a sickening crunch. She screamed, the sound echoing across the mountains, then immediately went silent, listening for any sign she'd been heard. Nothing but wind and her own ragged breathing. Using supplies from her first aid kit, Maya packed and bandaged her thigh wound as best she could. It needed stitches, but that wasn't happening tonight. She wrapped her ribs tightly with an ace bandage, creating compression that would help stabilize them. 2 ibuprofen from the kit. It would barely touch the pain, but it was something. She drank sparingly from her canteen and ate half a protein bar. Then she looked down the mountain toward where base camp lay, 40 kilometers to the southeast. The lights twinkled in the distance like a cruel mirage. Enemy forces would be searching this area at dawn, looking for bodies, salvaging gear. She couldn't go down, she had to go up and around, through the high passes where they wouldn't expect anyone to travel, not in her condition, not alone. Maya shouldered her rifle and began to move, each step a fresh hell of pain. She navigated by the stars, moving slowly but deliberately through the night. Every sound made her freeze. Every shadow could be an enemy fighter. But she was a ghost now, dead to the world, and ghosts didn't stop moving. As dawn approached, she spotted it. A thin column of black smoke rising from a valley 3 kilometers to the northeast. Smoke meant fire. Fire meant a crash or an attack. Against her better judgment, against every survival instinct that screamed at her to keep heading toward friendly lines, Maya altered course toward the smoke. She found cover in a small cave as the sun rose, watching the smoke through her cracked scope. Her concussion made her vision blur periodically, forcing her to rest her eyes. But patience was a sniper's greatest virtue. Through the scope, details emerged. Helicopter wreckage, an MH-60 Black Hawk, its tail boom severed, the fuselage crumpled and burned. Army markings. Bodies lay scattered around the crash site, some covered with ponchos. But movement, there was movement. Maya's heart rate quickened. Survivors. She spent an hour observing, making sure it wasn't an enemy trap. Finally, she counted 4 figures moving around the crash site. American uniforms. They'd established a small defensive perimeter, but it was weak. They looked trapped. Maya began her approach, moving slowly, staying in cover. As she got closer, she could see them more clearly, Army Rangers by their uniforms and patches. One was working on a casualty. Another was trying to fix a radio, smashing it in frustration when it wouldn't work. A third was providing security, scanning with his rifle. The fourth lay on a stretcher, barely moving. They'd been here at least 18 hours based on the burn pattern of the wreckage. No rescue had come. They were on their own. Just like her. Maya was 50 meters out when the ranger on security spotted movement and spun his rifle toward her position. She raised her hand slowly, wincing at the pain in her shoulder. "Friendly," she called out, her voice rough. "U.S. Navy SEAL." The ranger's eyes widened in shock as she stepped into the open. She knew what she must look like, covered in blood and dirt, uniform torn, moving like every step might be her last. "Holy," the ranger breathed. He was an older NCO, his name tape reading CHEN. "You're supposed to be dead. The radio traffic this morning said a SEAL sniper was KIA in the mountains." Maya managed a grim smile as she approached, rifle slung. "Yeah, well, news of my death was greatly exaggerated." She entered their defensive perimeter, and the full scope of their situation became clear. 4 Rangers total. Staff Sergeant Derek Chen, the NCO who'd spotted her. A young female combat medic named Tors working frantically on a casualty. A heavily muscled soldier with sergeant stripes, Williams, who had his leg splinted and clearly couldn't walk. And the critical casualty on the stretcher, a young private named Rivera whose lips were turning blue. "Internal bleeding," Tors said without looking up, her hands red with blood. "He needs a surgeon like yesterday. Our medevac never came. Radio's dead. And we've got enemy patrols searching the area every few hours." Chen looked at Maya, taking in her obvious injuries, her cracked scope, the way she favored her right side. "No offense, Chief, but you look like you can barely stand. How exactly are you going to help us?" Maya unslung her rifle, moved to a slight rise that offered a view of the surrounding area, and settled into a prone position despite the screaming protest from her ribs. Through her scope, she spotted what she'd heard: 4 enemy fighters moving through the valley below, heading toward the crash site. "Watch," she said simply. 4 shots rang out in quick succession, the reports echoing across the valley. 4 bodies dropped before they even knew they were under fire. Clean headshots, all between 400 and 450 meters. Maya worked the bolt smoothly between each shot, her breathing controlled despite the pain. She rose slowly, turning to face Chen. His jaw had gone slack. "That's how I'm going to help you, Sergeant," Maya said. "Now, let's talk about getting you and your Rangers home alive." Silence that followed Maya's demonstration lasted several heartbeats. Chen stared at the distant bodies through his binoculars, then back at the bloodied SEAL sniper who just dropped 4 targets like they were training dummies. "Okay," Chen said slowly, lowering his binoculars. "You've got my attention, Chief." Maya nodded, then immediately regretted the movement as her head swam. The concussion was getting worse, not better. She gripped her rifle to steady herself, breathing through the wave of dizziness. Tors looked up from her patient, her young face streaked with dirt and blood. She couldn't have been more than 22. "Chief, no disrespect, but you look like you need a medic as much as Rivera does." "I'll live," Maya said, moving toward them despite her body's protests. "He won't, not without help. Tell me what we're dealing with." Tors gestured to the unconscious private on the stretcher. Private James Rivera, 22 years old. Internal bleeding, likely ruptured spleen from the crash impact. I've got him stabilized for now, but his blood pressure keeps dropping. He needs surgery within 24 hours or he's gone, maybe less. Maya knelt beside Williams, the big sergeant with the shattered leg. He was gritting his teeth against obvious pain, his skin pale and sweaty. "Sergeant Williams, how's your leg?" "Been better, Chief," Williams grunted. "Femur's broken in at least 2 places. Tors splinted it, but I can't walk, can barely crawl." "Call me Bull," he added. "Everyone does." Maya examined the splint. Tors had done good work with limited supplies. Professional, stable. "You can still shoot though, right, Bull?" A fierce grin crossed Williams's face. "Ma'am, I could shoot with both arms blown off." "Good, I'm going to need that." Maya turned to Chen. "Sergeant, give me the full picture. What happened, what's your tactical situation, and what assets do we have? Chen ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. We were running a reconnaissance mission, mapping enemy positions in this sector. Intel said the area was lightly defended. Intel was wrong, seems to be going around. We took an RPG to the tail rotor about 20 clicks from our LZ. Pilot did an amazing job getting us down, but he didn't make it. Neither did our lieutenant or our RTO. That leaves 4 of us. He gestured around their makeshift perimeter. We've been here about 18 hours. Called for medevac immediately after the crash, but then our radio died, took damage in the impact. We've got small arms, limited ammunition, some food and water. Enemy patrols have passed by 3 times. We've stayed quiet, stayed hidden. But with Rivera getting worse and no comms, I was starting to think that you'd have to move or die here, Maya finished. I know the feeling. Tor stood up, wiping her bloody hands on her pants. Chief Reeves, right? I heard about you. You're the woman who made it through SEAL training. Yeah. Maya's voice held no pride or defensiveness, just fact. And right now, I'm the best chance you've got. Chen studied her critically. No offense, Chief, but you're one person. One injured person. We've got 2 who can't walk, enemy forces searching the area, no communications, and we're about 40 clicks from friendly lines through hostile territory. What's your plan? Maya pulled out her map, now creased and bloodstained, and spread it on the ground. The others gathered around. Even Williams dragged himself closer to see. We can't head straight for friendly lines, Maya said, tracing her finger across the map. Too far, too exposed, and you're right. We can't move fast enough with Rivera and Bull. The enemy would run us down in the open country. So what do we do? Tors asked. Maya pointed to a location 8 kilometers northwest. Here, old mining facility abandoned for years. It's up in the hills, defensible, and most importantly, it has elevation and sight lines. We get there, we set up a proper defensive position, and we create a signal that can't be ignored. Chen frowned. A signal, our radio's dead. Who said anything about a radio? Maya's eyes had a dangerous glint. We're going to make them see us. Smoke, fire, explosions, whatever it takes. The QRF will be searching for your downed bird. We make enough noise, they'll come running. That'll also bring every enemy fighter in the valley, Chen pointed out. Yes, it will, Maya agreed. Which is why we need to be somewhere we can hold them off. The mining facility has stone buildings, good fields of fire, multiple defensive positions. I can cover your approach, set up kill zones, make them pay for every meter. Williams let out a low whistle. That's a hell of a plan, Chief. Risky as hell, but I can't think of anything better. It's suicide, Chen said flatly. 8 clicks through enemy territory with 2 casualties and 1 injured SEAL. We'd never make it. Maya met his eyes steadily. You have a better option, Sergeant, because sitting here waiting for Rivera to die isn't a plan. It's just slow-motion surrender. The words hung in the air. Chen looked at Rivera's pale face, at Williams's shattered leg, at young Tors who was trying so hard to save them all. Then back at Maya, this bloodied, battered SEAL who dug herself out of her own grave and somehow found them. You really think you can get us there? Chen asked quietly. I got myself out from under a mountain of rocks, Maya said. I tracked 4 clicks through enemy territory with broken ribs and a concussion. I found you. Yeah, Sergeant, I can get you there, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Chen was silent for a long moment. Trust didn't come easy in combat, especially trust in someone you just met, no matter how impressive their shooting. But what choice did they have? The minute we start moving, we're committed, Chen said. No turning back. I've been committed since I woke up buried alive, Maya replied. The enemy thinks I'm dead. They think you're trapped and helpless. Let's use that. We move at dusk, gives us darkness to cover our movement. Tors, can you stabilize Rivera for transport? Tors nodded. I can rig up an IV drip, give him something for the pain, but every bump, every jostle could make the bleeding worse. Then we moved smooth and careful. Maya turned to Williams. Bull, you're getting a ride. We'll fashion a travois, 2 poles and a poncho. Won't be comfortable, but it'll work. I can help pull security while they drag me, Williams offered. Rig me up so I can shoot. That's the spirit. Maya checked her watch. 0900 hours. We've got 9 hours to prep. Chen, you and I will scout the route, clear any immediate threats. Tors, you prep the casualties for movement. We take only essential gear, weapons, ammo, medical supplies, water. Everything else stays. Chen stood, made his decision. All right, Chief, you're calling the shots, but understand this, these are my Rangers. You get them killed because of some glory play and… I'm not here for glory, Maya interrupted, her voice hard. I'm here because leaving people behind isn't an option. Not for me. Not anymore. Something in her tone made Chen reconsider his words. He nodded slowly. Fair enough, let's get to work. As the group began preparations, Tors approached Maya with her medical kit. Chief, let me at least clean and redress that leg wound. Infection will kill you as sure as a bullet. Maya wanted to refuse, to stay tough, but Tors was right. She sat down and let the young medic work, gritting her teeth as Tors cleaned the deep laceration. This needs stitches, Tors muttered. Field expedient, Maya said. Super glue will hold it. Tors looked horrified but did as instructed, using medical adhesive to close the wound before wrapping it tightly. You SEALs are crazy, you know that. That's what they keep telling us, Maya said with a slight smile. How are you holding up, Tors? The young medic's hands trembled slightly as she worked. Honestly, I'm terrified. Rivera's dying and I can't save him here. Bull's in agony, we're surrounded. And our best hope is a half-dead SEAL sniper who probably shouldn't even be conscious. That's a fair assessment, Maya admitted. But here's the thing, Tors, fear means you're smart enough to understand the danger. Now you just have to be brave enough to move anyway. Can you do that? Tors finished bandaging and met Maya's eyes. Despite the exhaustion and fear, there was steel there. Rangers lead the way, Chief. We don't quit. Good, Maya said, because neither do SEALs. Now help me up. We've got work to do. As Maya stood, Chen approached with his rifle. Route planning. Route planning, Maya confirmed. And Sergeant, thanks for trusting me. Don't thank me yet, Chen replied. Thank me when we're all home drinking beer. Deal, Maya said, and despite everything, the pain, the danger, the impossible odds, she smiled. They had 8 kilometers of hell ahead of them, but they'd face it together. Dusk came too quickly and not quickly enough. Maya spent the afternoon scouting their route with Chen, memorizing terrain features, identifying choke points and danger areas. Every step was agony, her ribs grinding like broken glass, but she forced herself to move, to think, to plan. We'll follow this wadi for the first 2 clicks, Maya explained, pointing to a dry riverbed on the map. Gives us cover from observation. Then we cut through this village. It's small, maybe a dozen buildings. After that, we cross the Panjshir tributary and climb into the high country. Chen studied the route, his expression troubled. That village could be full of fighters. Could be, Maya agreed. Which is why I'm going through first. I clear it, you follow with the casualties. We move in stages, I advance, secure, signal you forward. Slow but steady. You can barely walk yourself, Chen observed. Then it's good I can still shoot. Maya checked her rifle for the 100th time. 20 rounds. She'd have to make every single one count. By the time they returned to the crash site, Tors had Rivera and Williams prepped for movement. The travois for Williams was crude but functional, 2 sturdy poles with a poncho stretched between them. Rivera lay on a makeshift litter, an IV bag secured above him, his breathing shallow but steady. Gave him morphine, Tors reported. Enough to keep him comfortable but not so much he stops breathing. Blood pressure's holding but barely. Maya knelt beside the young private. His skin was gray, lips tinged blue. 22 years old and dying in a foreign land. Not on her watch. "Hang in there, Rivera," she whispered. "We're getting you home." His eyes fluttered open briefly, unfocused. "Mom," he mumbled. "Soon," Maya promised, though the word felt like a lie. Real soon. At 1900 hours they moved out. Chen and Torres carried Rivera's litter. Williams was harnessed to the travois, a rifle across his chest. Maya took point, moving 50 meters ahead, her senses hyper-alert despite the exhaustion and pain. The wadi provided good concealment, but the rocky terrain made for difficult travel. Behind her, she could hear the occasional grunt of pain from Williams as the travois bounced over stones. Rivera remained silent, too silent. Maya spotted the first real threat an hour into their movement, 2 fighters standing guard at a stone bridge that crossed the wadi. They were smoking, relaxed, not expecting trouble. Maya ranged them at 380 meters. Difficult shots in failing light, but not impossible. She keyed her radio. Chen had given her their backup short-range unit. "Alpha, this is Overwatch. 2 tangos at the bridge, 400 meters north, taking them now." "Copy," Chen's voice crackled back. "Standing by." Maya settled into position, controlling her breathing despite her broken ribs. First target, older fighter, heavyset, standing on the left side. She placed the crosshairs on his head, compensated for the slight breeze, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked, the fighter dropped. His companion barely had time to react before Maya's second shot took him in the chest. Both bodies collapsed onto the bridge. "Bridge clear," Maya reported, moving to secure. She reached the bridge, confirmed the kills, and signaled Chen forward. The team crossed quickly, Williams gritting his teeth as the travois bounced over the uneven stone. "2 down," Chen said quietly as they passed the bodies. "Ammo count." 18 rounds, Maya replied. 45 kills with 18 rounds left. The math wasn't encouraging. The village appeared ahead, a cluster of mud brick compounds huddled in the darkness. Dim lights flickered in a few windows. Dogs barked in the distance. Maya signaled the team to hold position while she moved forward alone. She cleared the village house by house, moving like a shadow through narrow alleys. Most buildings were empty or housed only civilians, old men, women, children who watched her pass with frightened eyes. Maya put a finger to her lips, the universal gesture for silence. They nodded, understanding. In the last compound, she found 3 fighters sleeping, their rifles stacked carelessly against a wall. Maya could have killed them easily, but gunshots would wake the village, create chaos. Instead, she moved past silently, leaving them to their dreams. Sometimes the best fight was the one you avoided. "Village clear," she radioed. "Come through quiet." The team moved through like ghosts, avoiding the occupied buildings. They were almost clear when a door opened and an old man stepped out. He saw them, froze, eyes going wide. For a heartbeat, Maya thought he'd shout an alarm. Instead, the old man looked at Rivera's pale face on the litter, at Williams's splinted leg, and something like pity crossed his weathered features. He stepped back inside without a word and closed the door. "Keep moving," Maya whispered. They reached the river crossing at 2300 hours. The Panjshir tributary wasn't deep, maybe waist-high, but the current was strong and the water was snowmelt cold. Maya waded in first, testing the footing. The icy water made her wounded legs scream, but the cold also numbed some of the pain. "Slow and steady," she called back. "Watch your footing." Chen and Torres entered the water with Rivera's litter held high. Williams pulled himself along with his arms, the travois floating partially behind him. They were halfway across when Rivera started convulsing. "He's crashing," Torres screamed, "his pressure's bottoming out." "Get him to the bank," Maya ordered, but even as she said it, she saw movement on the far ridge, silhouettes against the moonlight. Enemy patrol drawn by Torres' shout. "Contact right," Chen yelled, struggling to keep the litter stable while reaching for his rifle. Maya was already moving, slogging through the current toward the far bank. Bullets cracked overhead as the enemy opened fire. She reached solid ground, dropped prone, and acquired targets through her scope. 3 fighters, 250 meters uphill. Her vision blurred, the concussion making her see double for a moment. She blinked hard, forced her eyes to focus. First shot clean miss. The round sparked off rock behind the target. "Damn it," she hissed, working the bolt. 15 rounds left. Second shot center mass. The fighter dropped. Third shot another hit. The remaining fighter dove for cover. Behind her, Torres was performing CPR on Rivera in the middle of the river, water swirling around them. "Come on, come on," the young medic shouted, compressing his chest. "Don't you dare die on me, Rivera." Chen provided covering fire with his rifle, forcing the remaining enemy fighter to keep his head down. Williams, still in the water, had somehow gotten his weapon up and was firing one-handed. Maya's scope found the last fighter as he popped up to shoot. Headshot. He fell backward and didn't move. "Clear," Maya called. "Torres, how is he?" "Got a pulse," Torres gasped. "Weak but there, help me get him out." They dragged Rivera to the bank. Torres immediately went back to work, checking his vitals, adjusting his IV. He coded for almost a minute. "I got him back, but Chief, he's not going to survive another episode like that. He needs that surgeon now, not in 6 hours. Maya checked her watch. They'd covered 4 kilometers in 4 hours, 4 more to go. Rivera wouldn't last. "Then we move faster," Maya said grimly. "Chen, can you and Torres jog with the litter?" "In this terrain, at night," Chen looked skeptical. "I'll clear the path ahead. You move as fast as you safely can. Bull, can you pull yourself faster?" Williams's face was tight with pain and cold, but he nodded. "Double-time crawl. I can do it." "Then we move. Now." Maya stood, swaying slightly, and started uphill. The next 4 hours became a blur of pain and determination. Maya ranged ahead, taking out sentries and threats, 2 more here, 1 there. Her ammo count dropped, 13 rounds, 11-9. Behind her, she could hear the team crashing through brush, no longer bothering with stealth. Speed was survival now. Her leg wound reopened, fresh blood soaking through the bandage. Her ribs felt like they were stabbing into her lungs with every breath. The concussion made the world tilt and spin, but she kept moving, kept shooting, kept clearing the path. At 400 hours, with dawn approaching, they crested a ridge and saw it. The mining facility, exactly where the map said it would be. Stone buildings, a main structure, outbuildings, tailings piles. Defensible. "There," Maya pointed, "that's home." They stumbled down the slope, exhaustion overwhelming training and discipline. Maya cleared the main building, abandoned, dusty, but structurally sound. Torres immediately set up a medical station and went to work on Rivera. Chen collapsed against a wall, breathing hard. "We made it. I can't believe we actually made it." Maya slumped beside him, her rifle across her lap. 8 kilometers through enemy territory. She'd made 17 confirmed kills to get them here, but they'd made it. "How's Rivera?" she called to Torres. The young medic looked up, her face grim. "Alive, barely. He won't last another 12 hours without surgery, Chief." Maya nodded, too tired to even feel the weight of that deadline. "Then we've got 12 hours to make rescue happen." She looked around the facility, her tactical mind already working despite the exhaustion. Old fuel drums, mining equipment, detonation cord in a storage locker. The pieces of a plan began forming. "Get some rest," she told Chen. "In 3 hours we're going to ring the dinner bell, and when we do, every enemy in this valley is going to come running." Chen stared at her. "That's insane." Maya smiled, exhausted and half-dead but unbroken. "Yeah, that's kind of my specialty." Dawn broke over the mining facility like a warning. Maya stood at the main building's upper window, studying their position through her cracked scope. The facility sat on a plateau carved into the mountainside, good fields of fire in 3 directions, but only one viable escape route. A perfect defensive position if you had a platoon. With 4 fighters and 2 casualties, it was a potential tomb. "Chief, you need to see this," Chen called from below. Maya descended the creaking stairs, each step sending fresh spikes of pain through her ribs. Chen had found a storage room filled with remnants from the facility's operational days, rusted mining equipment, old tools, and most importantly, 3 intact fuel drums and several coils of detonation cord. "Jackpot," Maya breathed, her mind already calculating possibilities. "Bull, you know demolitions." Williams, lying on his travois near the door, grinned despite his pain. "Ranger school, baby. I can make things go boom." "Good, because we're going to turn this place into hell on earth." Maya knelt beside him, ignoring her screaming leg. "We rig these fuel drums as improvised explosives, place them at key choke points. When the enemy comes, and they will, we channel them into kill zones and light them up." "That'll work once," Chen said, checking his ammunition. "Maybe twice. But Chief, Torres says Rivera has maybe 6 hours left. Even if we signal for help, how long before QRF can reach us? 2 hours, 3. "Which is why we make a signal they can't ignore," Maya replied. She pointed to the fuel drums. "We don't just defend. We create the biggest fireworks show these mountains have ever seen. Smoke, fire, explosions. Something visible from 50 clicks away." Torres appeared from the medical room, her face drawn with exhaustion. "He's fatting fast. Blood pressure's critical. I've done everything I can, but without a surgeon." Her voice cracked. "I'm watching him die and I can't stop it." Maya gripped the young medic's shoulder. "You've kept him alive this long. Now we do the rest. How much morphine do we have left?" 2 doses, maybe 3 if I dilute them." "Save them. We're all going to need them before this is over." Maya turned to address the group. "Here's the situation. We're out of options and out of time, so we force the issue. We make noise, we make fire, and we make the enemy come to us on our terms. We hold them off long enough for rescue to arrive." "And if rescue doesn't come?" Chen asked quietly. Maya met his eyes steadily. "Then we make our last stand count. But I didn't crawl out of my grave and drag you 8 clicks through hell to die in this place. We're getting out, all of us." They spent the next 2 hours preparing. Maya positioned the fuel drums at the facility's 3 approaches, wiring them with detonation cord. Bull talked her through the setup despite his pain. Chen reinforced their defensive positions with whatever materials he could find: old timbers, stone barriers, rusted equipment. At 900 hours, Torres emerged from the medical room, her face ashen. "He's crashing again. I got him back, but Chief, this was the last time. His body can't take another episode." Maya checked her watch. They'd been at the facility for 5 hours. Time had run out. "Everyone to positions," she ordered. "Chen, upper floor with me. Torres, you're on Rivera, keep him alive. Bull, you've got the ground floor west window. When I give the signal, we light this place up and ring every alarm bell from here to Kabul." She climbed to the upper floor, moving to the window with the best view of the valley below. Through her scope, she could see enemy patrols. They'd been searching all night and they were getting closer. 6 fighters moving up the main trail, more in the village they'd passed through. Maybe 40 total in the area. "Here they come," Chen muttered, watching through his rifle scope. "They've found our trail from the river." Maya's radio, a captured enemy unit they'd found in the facility, crackled to life with foreign voices. Pashto. She didn't speak it fluently, but she caught enough words. They knew someone was at the mining facility. They were organizing an assault. "Get ready," Maya said. She keyed the detonator for the first fuel drum, positioned 200 meters down the main approach. "When I blow this, all hell breaks loose. No more quiet. We make them hear us in Kandahar." She waited, watching through her scope as enemy fighters gathered, organizing into assault teams. 20, 30, 35. Good. The more she could hit with the first blast, the better. "Fire in the hole," Maya announced, and pressed the detonator. The explosion was massive. The fuel drum erupted in a fireball that engulfed the lead assault team. The concussion wave shook the building. Black smoke billowed into the morning sky, visible for miles. "Light 'em up," Maya shouted and opened fire. Her first shot dropped a fighter at 500 meters. Second shot, another down. Chen was firing beside her, his shots methodical and accurate. Bull's machine gun roared from below, raking the approaches. The enemy scattered, seeking cover, but Maya picked them off with surgical precision. Headshot. Center mass. Headshot. Her broken ribs ground together with each recoil, each breath agony, but her hands remained steady. "RPG," Chen screamed. Maya swung her rifle, found the fighter with the launcher, squeezed the trigger. The fighter dropped, but the RPG flew wild, impacting the building's corner. Stone and dust exploded inward. The battle became chaos. Enemy fighters attacked from multiple directions, probing for weaknesses. Maya was everywhere, covering one approach, then swinging to another. Her remaining ammunition dwindled. 9 rounds. 7. 5. An hour into the fight, she took a round through her left shoulder. The impact spun her backward, fresh blood soaking her uniform. She gasped, vision graying, but forced herself back to the window. 4 rounds left. "Chief, you're hit," Chen started toward her. "Stay on your sector," Maya snarled, working the bolt one-handed. "I'm still in this fight." She was down to her sidearm now, the rifle empty. The pistol felt wrong in her right hand. She was left-handed, but she made it work. Short, controlled bursts through the window. The enemy was getting closer, their assault more coordinated. "They're flanking east," Bull shouted from below. "I can't cover that angle." Maya stumbled down the stairs, nearly blacking out from blood loss. She reached the east window, saw fighters rushing the building. She emptied her pistol into them. 5 down, 6. The slide locked back, empty. She grabbed Chen's backup rifle, a captured AK-47, and kept firing. The weapon was unfamiliar, the sights different, but at close range it didn't matter. Spray and pray. The attackers fell back. 2 hours, 3. The battle raged. Maya lost track of her kill count, 23 confirmed, maybe more. The facility was a fortress of death, and she was its reaper. But they were running out of ammunition, out of time, out of options. At 1200 hours, Torres screamed from the medical room. "He's coding again. I can't, Chief, he's dying." Maya looked at Chen, at Bull covering his sector despite his shattered leg, at Torres fighting desperately to save Rivera. They'd held for 3 hours, but the enemy was preparing another assault, a larger one. She could see them massing. One chance left, one final play. "Bull," Maya called down. "Wire the last 2 fuel drums to blow on my signal. Everything we've got, make it count." "Chief, that's our whole defensive perimeter," Chen protested. "We blow those, we've got nothing left." Maya's eyes were wild with determination and pain. "We don't need defense anymore. We need a signal so big that God himself sees it. We end this. Now." She grabbed the detonator, moved to the central window overlooking the valley. Enemy fighters were everywhere, 40, maybe 50. They thought they had the Americans trapped, helpless. They were wrong. "Everyone downstairs," Maya ordered. "Torres, get Rivera ready to move. When I blow this, we have maybe 5 minutes before this whole place comes down. We run for the North Pass and we don't look back." "That's suicide," Chen shouted. "We'll never make it in the open." "We're dead if we stay," Maya countered. "This is our only chance, trust me." Chen looked at her, this half-dead SEAL who'd led them this far against impossible odds. He nodded. "Rangers, lead the way. Let's do it." Maya watched the enemy assault teams form up, waited for them to commit. Closer, closer. "Now," she screamed and pressed the detonator. The world became fire. The explosion wasn't just an explosion, it was an apocalypse. Both fuel drums detonated simultaneously, creating a fireball that rose 300 feet into the air. The mining facility's main structure shuddered, walls cracking, support beams groaning. The shockwave flattened enemy fighters like wheat before a scythe, bodies tumbling through the air like rag dolls. Maya was already moving, her shoulders screaming as she hauled herself down the stairs. "Go, go, go!" she shouted over the roar of flames and collapsing stone. Chen and Torres carried Rivera's litter between them, the unconscious private's face deathly pale. Bull pulled himself forward on his travois, using his massive arms to propel himself across the floor. Maya grabbed the back of the travois, adding her failing strength to help drag him. "North exit," Maya gasped, blood pouring from her shoulder wound. "Through the tailings pile." They burst from the building just as a support beam crashed down where they'd been standing seconds before. The entire structure was collapsing, fire consuming everything, smoke billowing into the sky in a column visible for 50 miles. The explosion had brought them chaos, enemy fighters scattered, disoriented, some on fire, others stumbling blind through the smoke. But Maya knew it wouldn't last. She could already hear officers shouting in Pashto, reorganizing their forces. "Keep moving," she urged, stumbling behind the group. Her vision blurred, doubled. The concussion and blood loss were catching up fast. She tripped over a rock, went down hard, gasping as her broken ribs ground together. "Chief," Chen dropped his end of the litter, running back for her. "Don't stop for me," Maya tried to shout, but it came out as a wheeze. "Rivera needs." "Shut up and move." Chen hauled her to her feet with one arm. "We leave no one behind. Isn't that what you said?" They staggered forward together. Behind them, the mining facility was an inferno, flames reaching toward the sky, explosions still echoing as ammunition cooked off. Ahead, the North Pass offered escape, a narrow canyon that would channel them toward friendly territory. And 20 miles away, at forward operating base Shank, a radar operator stared at his screen in disbelief. "Sir, you need to see this," he called to his commander. "Massive explosion, grid reference 472856. That's where the missing Ranger element went down." The Quick Reaction Force commander grabbed his radio. "All elements, this is Ramrod 6. We've got a possible survivor signal from the downed bird. 2 Apache, 1 Chinook, airborne in 5 minutes. Move with speed." Helicopter rotors began spinning up. Back at the mining facility, Maya and the Rangers fought through the tailings pile, loose gravel sliding beneath their feet. Torres was crying as she ran, knowing every jostle was killing Rivera a little more. Bull had abandoned the travois, dragging himself commando-style across the rocks, teeth gritted against agony. "They're following," Chen reported, glancing back. 20, maybe 30 fighters regrouping. Maya turned, saw the pursuing enemy through the smoke. She had no ammunition left, no grenades, nothing but her knife and her determination. "How far to the pass?" she gasped. "Half a click," Chen pointed ahead. "But Chief, there's no cover. They'll cut us down in the open." Maya's mind raced despite the fog of pain and exhaustion. Think like a SEAL. The enemy had numbers. She had terrain knowledge and desperation. "The pass," she said suddenly. "It narrows to 10 meters wide, walls on both sides 40 feet high." "Yeah, so we get through first, then we bring down the walls, trap them on the other side or bury the ones who follow us." Chen stared at her. "With what? We used all the explosives." Maya looked up at the canyon walls, at the unstable rock faces weathered by centuries of wind and water. "We don't need explosives. Nature did the hard work already. We just need to give it a push." They reached the pass entrance. Maya turned to Torres. "Get Rivera through, don't stop for anything, go." Torres and Chen carried the litter into the canyon, moving as fast as the narrow terrain allowed. Bull followed, leaving a trail of blood from his shattered leg. Maya remained at the entrance, studying the rock walls. There, a massive boulder, precariously balanced, held in place by smaller stones. She began climbing despite her injuries, using her good arm and her legs, ignoring the way her ribs felt like they were tearing into her lungs. Bullets cracked past her. The enemy was closing, 200 meters and closing fast. She could see their faces now, twisted with rage and determination. 100 meters. Maya reached the boulder, positioned herself behind it, and began kicking at the supporting stones with her good leg. One broke free, then another. The boulder shifted, groaning. 50 meters, she could hear them shouting. "Come on," Maya hissed, kicking harder. "Move, damn you." A bullet struck inches from her head, showering her with rock fragments. Another hit her vest, knocking the wind from her lungs. She kicked one more time, putting everything she had left into it. The boulder shifted, tipped, and fell. It crashed down the canyon wall like an avalanche, triggering a cascading rock slide. Tons of stone tumbled into the pass entrance, crushing the lead enemy fighters and blocking the path completely. Screams were cut short beneath the weight of falling rock. Maya didn't wait to see the result. She half fell, half climbed down the wall, landing hard and rolling. "Get up! Move!" The mantra kept her going when her body screamed to stop. She stumbled into the pass, found the others waiting 200 meters in. "You did it," Chen said, amazed. "You actually did it." "Don't celebrate yet," Maya wheezed. "They'll find another way around. We've bought maybe 30 minutes. Tours, how's Rivera?" The young medic's face was streaked with tears. "He's still breathing, barely. But Chief, his pulse is thready. He's minutes away from." "Then we move faster." Maya tried to stand straight, swayed, and Chen caught her. "How far to defensible terrain?" 2 clicks to a clearing suitable for landing a helicopter. "If they come." "They'll come." Maya said it with more confidence than she felt. That fireball was visible from space. Someone saw it. Someone's coming. They pushed forward through the canyon, desperation fueling steps that should have been impossible. Maya's world had narrowed to the next footfall, the next breath, the next meter of ground. Behind them, faintly, they could hear enemy fighters shouting, searching for another route through the rockfall. Ahead, the canyon opened into a valley, exposed, open ground. The clearing Chen had mentioned. And in the distance, so faint Maya thought she might be hallucinating, the thump of helicopter rotors. "You hear that?" Bull gasped from his position on the ground. Maya tilted her head, listening through the ringing in her ears. Yes, helicopters, multiple birds, getting closer. "That's the cavalry," she breathed. "That's our ride home." But even as hope surged, she saw them, enemy fighters emerging from a parallel canyon, racing to cut them off from the landing zone. A race against time and death. "Run!" Maya screamed, and they ran. Torres and Chen sprinted with Rivera's litter bouncing between them. Bull crawled faster than seemed humanly possible, his arms pistoning like machinery. Maya stumbled along, her vision graying at the edges, her body running on pure adrenaline and willpower. The clearing was ahead, 200 meters, 150. The helicopters were closer now. She could see them, 2 Apache gunships and a Chinook transport coming in fast and low. The enemy fighters were sprinting across the valley, trying to reach them first. It was going to be close, too close. Maya reached the clearing, fell to her knees, and looked up at the sky. The Chinook was magnificent, a beautiful machine of salvation thundering toward them. But the enemy was in range now, muzzle flashes, bullets kicking up dirt. The Apache rolled in, their chain guns screaming. Enemy fighters were cut down in swaths, the 30 rounds tearing through flesh and bone. But more kept coming, a wave of desperate violence. The Chinook was descending, its rear ramp already lowering. "Get Rivera aboard," Maya shouted. "Torres, Chen, go." They ran for the helicopter, the rotor wash blasting them with dust and debris. Maya turned back, saw Bull still 30 meters behind, crawling with everything he had but not fast enough. Enemy fighters were closing on him, their rifles up. Without thinking, without her weapons, without anything but her battered body, Maya ran back toward Bull. "Chief, no!" Chen screamed from the helicopter ramp. Maya reached Bull, grabbed the travois, and began pulling with her one good arm. Enemy rounds cracked past her head, 20 meters to the Chinook, 15. An Apache's gun screamed again, covering them, 10 meters. Maya's legs gave out. She fell, still holding Bull's travois. Can't stop. Can't quit. She crawled, pulling Bull with her, every meter an eternity of pain. Hands grabbed her. Crew chiefs from the Chinook, pulling them aboard. The ramp was rising before they were fully inside. Maya collapsed on the deck as the helicopter lifted off, enemy tracers arcing past the windows. Someone was shouting medical commands. Someone else was starting an IV on Rivera. And through her fading vision, Maya saw Torres collapse beside her, sobbing with relief and exhaustion. "We made it," the young medic whispered. "Chief, we actually made it." Maya tried to respond, tried to say something meaningful, but the darkness was pulling her down. Her last thought before unconsciousness claimed her was simple. Mission complete. No one left behind. The Chinook banked hard, the pilot throwing the massive helicopter into evasive maneuvers as tracers streaked past the fuselage. Maya lay on the deck, her consciousness flickering like a dying flame. Around her, chaos reigned, medics working frantically on Rivera, crew chiefs manning door guns, the roar of rotors mixing with the bark of weapons fire. "We're taking hits," the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Multiple impacts port side." Maya forced her eyes open, saw sparks as bullets punched through the thin skin of the helicopter. Hydraulic fluid was misting in the cabin. Not good. They weren't clear yet. Through the open ramp, she could see the second wave of enemy fighters swarming into the valley. Vehicles, heavy weapons, a coordinated assault. The two Apache gunships were engaging, their chain guns and rockets turning the landscape into a hellscape, but there were too many targets. "Ramrod 2, this is Ramrod 1, one Apache pilot called over the radio. "I've got a technical with a DSHK mounting at your 6 o'clock, trying to track you." The heavy machine gun opened up, its distinctive hammering audible even over the Chinook's engines. Rounds walked toward the helicopter, stitching across the valley floor. "Can't shake him," the Chinook pilot grunted, throwing the bird into another hard turn. "He's got our range." Maya tried to sit up, her body screaming in protest. A crew chief pushed her back down. "Stay down, ma'am. You're in no condition." "Give me a rifle," Maya interrupted, her voice barely audible over the noise. "What? No, you need." Now, Maya's command voice cut through despite her weakness. Something in her eyes made the crew chief comply. He handed her his M4, already doubting his decision. Maya crawled to the open ramp door, the wind tearing at her bloodied uniform. Below and behind them she could see the technical, a pickup truck with a heavy machine gun mounted in the bed, tracking the Chinook's movement. "Chief, you can't make that shot," Chen shouted, crawling beside her. "We're moving too fast, you're injured the range." Maya settled into a prone position at the ramp's edge, her broken ribs grinding, her wounded shoulder barely functional. She used her right arm to steady the rifle, her left hand, weak and shaking, on the grip. The technical was 600 meters back and falling farther behind, but the gunner was good, adjusting his aim, leading the helicopter. "I don't miss," Maya said simply and looked through the optic. The world steadied despite the helicopter's movement, despite her injuries, despite everything. This was what she was born to do. She controlled her breathing, in through the nose, hold out through the mouth. The technical's gunner was in her sights. She compensated for wind speed, helicopter movement, target motion, and her own failing body. One shot, that's all she'd get. She squeezed the trigger. The gunner's head snapped back, and he fell from the truck bed. The DSHK went silent, its barrel pointing uselessly at the sky. "Holy," the crew chief breathed. "Did you just—" "One less problem," Maya whispered, then collapsed, the rifle clattering from her hands. Torres was beside her immediately, checking vitals. "She's crashing, blood pressure's dropping, I need a med kit here." The crew chief scrambled for supplies. Behind them, Rivera lay unconscious but stable, an IV in each arm, the flight medic working to keep him alive until they reached the field hospital. "How long to shank?" Torres demanded. 8 minutes, the pilot called back. "But we've got a red light on the hydraulics. We're losing fluid fast. I don't know if we can stay airborne that long." "You'll stay airborne," Bull growled from where he lay strapped to a stretcher, his shattered leg finally being properly treated. "You didn't come this far to crash now." The Apache continued to engage, burning through ammunition to cover the damaged Chinook's escape. Enemy fire intensified as they passed over the last hostile positions, one final desperate attempt to bring down the American helicopter. "Taking more hits," the co-pilot reported, "electrical systems fluctuating." Maya felt Torres working on her, felt the sting of an IV being inserted, felt pressure being applied to her wounds. But it all seemed distant, unreal. She'd done her part. The Rangers were safe. Rivera was still breathing. Mission accomplished. "Don't you dare die on me," Torres was saying, her voice thick with emotion. "Not after everything, you hear me, Chief? That's an order." Maya wanted to laugh at a specialist giving her orders, but she didn't have the energy. Her eyes drifted to the open ramp, watching the mountains fall away behind them. Somewhere back there was the mining facility, still burning. Somewhere back there were the bodies of enemies she'd killed to get here. Somewhere back there was a boulder pile that had been her grave until she'd refused to stay dead. "Chief," Tor's voice was fatting, "Chief, stay with me." "Rivera," Maya managed to whisper. "Stable, you saved him. You saved all of us." Maya's eyes found Chen, who was staring at her with something like awe. "Told you. I'd get you home," she breathed. "Yeah, you did," Chen replied, his voice rough. "One hell of a SEAL, Chief." The helicopter shuddered, the damaged systems protesting. Warning alarms blared in the cockpit. "I see the base," the pilot called out. 2 minutes, stay together, bird." Maya's consciousness was slipping away like water through her fingers. She'd done everything she could. The rest was up to others now. Her eyes closed, her breathing shallow. "No, no, no," Torres was slapping her face gently. "Eyes open, Chief, look at me." But the darkness was so warm, so inviting after days of pain and struggle. 30 seconds, the pilot announced. The Chinook was wobbling now, hydraulics nearly gone, the pilot fighting to keep it level. Through sheer skill and determination, he brought the massive helicopter down onto the FOB's landing pad in a barely controlled crash landing. The wheels hit hard, the airframe groaning, but they were down. "Medic, medic," voices were shouting. The ramp dropped and medical teams swarmed aboard. Rivera was offloaded first on a stretcher, doctors already calling out orders. Williams followed, then Chen limping alongside. Torres refused to leave Maya's side as they lifted her onto a gurney. "She's got multiple GSWs, broken ribs, severe blood loss, possible internal injuries." Torres rattled off, her medical training overriding her emotion. "She needs surgery now." They rushed Maya toward the field hospital, Torres running alongside, still holding her hand. In the trauma bay, surgeons were scrubbing, preparing. They transferred Maya to an operating table, cutting away her tattered uniform, exposing the full extent of her injuries. "Jesus," one surgeon muttered, "how is she even alive?" "She's a SEAL," another replied as if that explained everything. Maybe it did. Torres was being pulled away by nurses, told she needed treatment herself. "Save her," Torres pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "Please, she saved all of us. You have to save her." "We'll do everything we can," the lead surgeon promised, then turned to his team. "All right, people, let's get to work. This operator's been through hell. Let's make sure she makes it back." As the anesthesia mask was placed over Maya's face, her last semi-conscious thought was of her team, of Morrison who'd thought her dead, of the Rangers she'd carried home. No one left behind, she thought as the darkness finally claimed her completely. No one. The surgical team worked through the night, fighting for every second of Maya's life. And 20 kilometers away, Commander Morrison was being briefed on an impossible story. A story of survival, sacrifice, and a SEAL who'd refused to die. He grabbed his gear immediately, heading for the helicopter pad. He had someone to see, someone he'd left behind, someone who'd come home carrying 4 Rangers despite being dead. Maya Reeves wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. 3 days later, Maya's eyes opened to sterile white ceiling tiles and the rhythmic beep of medical monitors. Pain was still there, but muted now, controlled by medication. She tried to move and found her left arm in a sling, her torso wrapped in bandages, IV lines running into both arms. "Easy," a familiar voice said softly. Maya turned her head slowly. Commander Jack Morrison sat in a chair beside her bed, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were red-rimmed, his uniform rumpled. When their eyes met, something broke in his expression. "You're awake," he said, his voice catching. "The doctors said you might be out for another day or two, but I should have known. You're too stubborn to follow anyone's timeline." "Where?" Maya's throat was dry, her voice a rasp. "Landstuhl Regional Medical Center, Germany. They medevac you here for surgery." Morrison poured water from a pitcher, held the cup so she could sip through a straw. "You've been out for 3 days, 5 surgeries, the doctors said." He paused, swallowing hard. "They said you shouldn't have survived the first hour." Maya's memory was returning in fragments. The firefight, the avalanche, the Rangers, the impossible journey, the explosion, the extraction. "The Rangers," she managed. Morrison's face softened. "All alive, all of them. Rivera made it, surgery was touch and go, but he pulled through. Williams is going to walk again, probably with a limp, but he'll walk. Torres is fine, already back on duty. Chen's got some shrapnel wounds, nothing serious." Relief flooded through Maya, and tears she couldn't control slipped down her cheeks. "We got them home." "No," Morrison said quietly. "You got them home, after I left you to die." The words hung heavy in the air between them. Maya saw the guilt etched into every line of his face, the weight of command decisions that haunted him. "You followed protocol," Maya said. "Extraction under fire, 1 presumed KIA, 2 wounded who needed immediate medical attention. You made the right call, Jack." "The hell I did," Morrison's voice was rough with emotion. "I left you, Maya. I looked at that rock slide and decided you were gone, and I left you. Do you know what that's done to me? Do you know how many times I've replayed that moment, wondering if I'd searched longer if I'd—" "You'd have gotten more people killed," Maya interrupted firmly. "Including yourself. I was buried under tons of rock with no vital signs, no radio response. Medically, tactically, I was dead. You did what any good commander would do, you saved who you could save." Morrison shook his head. "You don't understand. When I got the report that you were alive, that you'd saved 4 Rangers and fought your way through enemy territory," his voice broke. "Christ, Maya, you shouldn't have had to do that alone." "I wasn't alone," Maya said softly. "I had 4 Rangers counting on me. That's what kept me moving when my body wanted to quit. That's what made me fight when it would have been easier to just stop." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of those days settling between them. The impossible choices, the survival, the cost. "I'm sorry," Morrison finally said. "I'm so damn sorry, Maya." "I know," she replied. "And Jack, I forgive you, but more importantly, you need to forgive yourself. We're SEALs. We make impossible calls in impossible situations. That's the job." Before Morrison could respond, there was a knock at the door. A nurse poked her head in. "Chief Reeves, you have more visitors if you're up for it." Maya nodded, and the door opened wider. Chen walked in first, his arm in a sling, followed by Torres, then Williams in a wheelchair, his leg in a full cast. Behind them came Rivera, pale and thin but very much alive, pushed in a wheelchair by a nurse. "Chief," Chen said, his voice thick with emotion, "we heard you were awake." Maya smiled despite the pain. "Sergeant Chen, good to see you on your feet." "Thanks to you." Chen approached the bed and Maya saw his eyes were wet. "I need to say something. When you first showed up at that crash site, I doubted you. I looked at you and well, I saw someone who couldn't possibly get us out. I was wrong, dead wrong." "You were protecting your team," Maya said. "Can't fault you for that." "I can fault myself for being a judgmental ass," Chen replied. "You're the finest operator I've ever served with, Chief. Man or woman, SEAL or Ranger, doesn't matter. You're just damn good at what you do." Torres stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "You saved my life. You saved all our lives. I watched you fight when you should have been in a hospital bed. I watched you make shots that shouldn't have been possible. You carried us home, Chief." Williams rolled his wheelchair closer. "They're recommending you for the Navy Cross," he said. "Chen put in the paperwork himself. Personally, I think it should be the Medal of Honor, but apparently there's politics involved." "I don't need a medal," Maya said quietly. "I just needed you guys to make it home." Rivera, still weak, managed to speak. "I remember, in the river when I was dying, you promised my mom would see me again. You kept that promise. How do I thank someone for that?" "You already did," Maya replied. "You held on, you fought. That's all any of us can do." Morrison watched the exchange, seeing the bond that had been forged in fire and blood. This was bigger than medals or commendations. This was the family you choose when everything else falls away. Over the next hour, they talked, sharing fragments of those impossible days, filling in gaps, laughing at small moments that hadn't seemed funny at the time. The Rangers told Maya about the manhunt that had been launched when they disappeared, the massive search operation, the moment when her explosion signal had lit up every radar screen in the region. "You created a mushroom cloud," Chen said with a grin. "Some satellite analysts thought it was a tactical nuke for about 30 seconds. Eventually, the nurse shooed them out, insisting Maya needed rest. But before they left, each Ranger took a moment to grip her hand, to say thank you in their own way. When the door finally closed, only Morrison remained. "So," he said carefully, "the doctors say full recovery will take months. Physical therapy, evaluation boards, the whole process. You've got options, Maya. Medical retirement with full benefits, a teaching position at the schoolhouse. You've more than earned the right to step back." Maya looked out the hospital window at the German countryside, thinking about what came next. The easy path would be to accept the medical retirement, to take the accolades and step away from the danger. No one would blame her. She'd proven everything she needed to prove. But that wasn't who she was. "I've been thinking," Maya said slowly, "about what matters, about why I became a SEAL in the first place." "Why did you?" Morrison asked. "Because someone told me I couldn't," Maya smiled. "Because every door I tried to open had someone standing in front of it saying, 'Not for you.' I became a SEAL to prove them wrong, to show that gender doesn't determine capability." "You've proven that," Morrison said. "Everyone knows it now." "Maybe," Maya agreed. "But Jack, those 4 Rangers, they didn't care that I was a woman when I was pulling them through enemy territory. They cared that I could shoot, that I could lead, that I wouldn't quit. That's what being a SEAL means. That's what I want to get back to." Morrison studied her face. "You're saying you want to return to active duty." "I'm saying I never really left," Maya replied. "Not in the ways that matter. These scars," she gestured to her bandaged body, "they're just proof that I can take the hit and keep moving. The teams need operators who won't quit when things go sideways. I can be that." "It won't be easy," Morrison warned. "The physical therapy alone will be brutal." "Good thing brutal is kind of my specialty," Maya said with a slight grin. Morrison laughed, the sound relieving weeks of tension. "Yeah, I guess it is." He stood, prepared to leave, then paused. "Maya, for what it's worth, I'm glad you're alive, and I'm damn proud to serve with you." Same Jack, Maya replied, same. After he left, Maya lay back, looking at the ceiling tiles again. Her body was broken, yes, but she was alive. The Rangers were alive, and somewhere in those mountains she'd left behind the version of herself that needed to prove anything to anyone. Now she just needed to prove it to herself, that she could come back from this, that she could return to the teams, that she could be the operator she knew she was capable of being. A physical therapist knocked and entered, a professional smile on her face. Chief Reeves, I'm Captain Anderson. I'll be managing your PT. The doctors cleared you to start gentle movement today. Nothing major, just range of motion assessments. When can we start the real work? Maya asked. Captain Anderson raised an eyebrow. The real work won't begin for several weeks. First, we need to. Captain, Maya interrupted gently. With respect, I need to get back to my team. So whatever timeline you're thinking, let's cut it in half and work backward from there. The physical therapist looked at her patient, this broken, scarred warrior who'd survived the impossible, and saw the determination in her eyes. All right, Chief, Anderson said with a knowing smile. Challenge accepted, but fair warning, I'm going to push you harder than you've ever been pushed. Maya smiled back, ignoring the pain it caused, looking forward to it. As the sun set over Landstuhl, casting golden light through the hospital windows, Maya Reeves began the long road back. Not to prove anything to the doubters, not to make a statement about gender or capability. But because she was a SEAL, because her team needed her, because she'd made a promise to herself, to her brothers in arms, to 4 Rangers who'd trusted her with their lives. She'd left no one
No,
behind in
volate
those
fino a
mountains,
Houston e date un'occhiata.
and she
Sì,
sure as
sì,
hell wasn't leaving herself
sì.
behind now.
Cioè, ci si arriva in 2 minuti,
The
sì.
end.
Dopo che sei stato patatato, tesoro. Ah, con la scimmia! Con la scimmia. Ah, ah, ah. Secondo te, Demonino? Oh, Demonino,